LeBron James was made for the regular season. He's a regular season dynamo, but come postseason time, he's the most overrated, overhyped superstar in my history in this business. Seriously.
That was how LeBron James was viewed just over a decade ago. Skip has always been an extremist and generally unfair in his commentary, but he was merely the figurehead for an entire army of media members and fans eager to feast on LeBron. These folks were vindicated in 2011 and proven wrong consistently since then, whether they like to admit it or not.
Too often we've seen LeBron James come up very mentally weak in clutch moments.
But if Skip still believes that all these years later, should we really trust that he was being truthful over a decade ago? Was LeBron really an overrated regular season star who consistently shrunk in the playoffs? Here's a few examples of why me personally, well, I think that's bullshit. Play came in LeBron James' 5th ever NBA playoff game in just his 3rd NBA season at the age of just 21 years old, right? After missing the playoffs in both of his first 2 seasons in Cleveland, LeBron would lead the Cavs to a 50-32 record, good for 3rd in the East. Along the way, James would make his 2nd straight starting appearance in the All-Star game, his first All-NBA first team, as well he'd finish 2nd in MVP voting behind Steve Nash. Despite being a 7-game thriller, TV ratings were down for the 05 NBA Finals. Looking for a resurgence to those numbers, the NBA emphasized Kobe Bryant's return to the dance as well LeBron's awaited postseason debut. Pretty sure the league was happy with what they saw. Like, immediately. In his playoff debut, LeBron would post a 32-point triple-double, guiding the Cavs to an 11-point win.
Man, it was everything that I'd expected. The high-intensity crowd, every possession counts, and it's one of the deepest areas, and we showed that tonight.
His debut was referred to as magical, and a logical line of thinking would have led you to believe he'd be unable to top that performance. But, you'd be wrong. With the series tied at 1 back in Washington, LeBron would pull this off in Game 3.
Fakes right, goes left, bends in, over Ruffin, he got it to go!
The Cavs would go on to win that game, giving young Bron a game winner in just his 3rd career playoff game. Although yes, anybody with 2 working eyes could see that that was obviously a travel. You could probably see that if you had 1 eye, or no eyes, I don't know. Bad refereeing notwithstanding, the Wizards were able to tie the series once again, sending it back to Cleveland 2-2. LeBron had been sensational through 4 games, but prior to Game 5, then Commissioner David Stern would comment on the kid saying, quote, "Obviously LeBron came in with an enormous amount of hype and has exceeded it, but I always tell people, let's not put additional pressure on him. You get judged by the body of your work, and he's 21. He's got a lot of work yet to do." Yep. LeBron putting in some more of that work the commish was talking about. No travel on that one either. A 2nd game winner in his debut playoff series, followed up by 32-7-7 in a closeout Game 6. For the series, LeBron would average 35.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 5.7 assists per game.
That's not bad at all.
Working it down, 5 seconds, 4, 3, James scores with 2 to go.
LeBron, now 22, in his 4th NBA season, on his way to a finals appearance, made that play, another game winner. And the clutch aspect of the play is not even what I'm focusing on. After the Cavs dispatched Washington in 2006, as outlined just moments ago, they'd match up in the 2nd round against the Pistons. Detroit was fresh off winning a title in 04, then losing the finals in 05. LeBron and the Cavs would valiantly battle them for 7 games in 06 before eventually bowing out. Veteran Lindsey Hunter said of the matchup, quote, "It took a lot out of us. It probably cost us making it back to the finals." While former finals MVP Chauncey Billups mentioned of LeBron, quote, "He's just a freak of nature in his stature and in his knowledge of the game." He's a superstar. Four-time DPOY Ben Wallace had departed Detroit for Chicago, but the 07 Pistons still sported the 7th best defensive rating in the league and were 2nd best in opponent points per game. Again, yes, they had lost Ben Wallace, but they were still a contending team on the back of their defense. Anyways, the first 2 games of the series were a bit of a nightmare for LeBron and the Cavs. Cleveland would drop both games with their leader scoring just 10, then 19 points. Over the next 2, however, LeBron would average 29, 8, and 10 to draw the series even. He did though on just 51% true shooting, so clearly the Pistons had figured something out. And then game 5 happened. Through the first 3 quarters of the game, LeBron had 19 points on a measly 7 of 19 shooting from the floor. With about 6 minutes remaining in the fourth, he'd knocked down a perimeter jumper to put his Cavs up 3, but that was answered immediately with a 10-0 run by the Pistons. A LeBron bucket inside, a Drew Gooden free throw, then a LeBron triple, his first of the game, would bring Cleveland back to within 1. With 30 seconds left, LeBron would blow past Jason Maxiell for a clutch slam. However, that play was matched by Mr. Big Shot on the other end. Down 2 with the game on the line, LeBron would force a switch onto Tayshaun Prince out of a pick and roll, then proceed to blow past the defender for an OT forcing dunk. Tayshaun Prince, by the way, all defensive team member 4 seasons in a row, including here in 07. I'm just saying. LeBron had racked up 11 of the Cavs' final 12 points in regulation. Then he proceeded to score all the Cavs' points in overtime. This included yet another tough-as-nails jumper from the right wing with 30 seconds remaining. Unfortunately, a chance to put the game to bed with 8 seconds left was airballed by James. A tough moment for sure, and Chauncey Billups would send the game to double OT. Maybe LeBron wasn't clutch after all? I mean, an airball? The 22-year-old was undeterred, however, as to begin the extra frame, he'd convert a dirty step back right in the face of Tayshaun Prince. This was followed up a few minutes later by a behind-the-back pull-up from the top of the key to knot the game back up. Chris Webber, who, yes, was on this Pistons team, would convert an and one to regain a Pistons lead before LeBron stepped up again.
And the second overtime. Here's James for 3. Yes! And the game is tied. 107.
Following the game, Kenny Smith tried to explain how the Pistons should have reacted defensively to LeBron's dominance.
We're talking about double him before he starts his move. That's the only way to get Jordan get the ball. Charles Barkley away. Get Reggie Miller it's to start doubling him before he gets into his move.
But when you assess this shot in particular, the Pistons were trying everything. They were selling completely out to pack the paint, ignoring the Cavs' perimeter shooters. Chris Webber hard-hedged on the pick and roll to try to force the ball out of LeBron's hands, but it simply didn't matter. Steve Kerr on the broadcast would say, at this moment,
this is unbelievable. This is Jordan-esque.
Just over a minute later, with another shot to ice the game.
Working it down, 5 seconds, 4, 3, James scores with 2.2 to go.
A simple slash through the lane with very little resistance. A final line of 48 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists, which included scoring the last 25 points in a row for Cleveland while shooting 11 of 14 from the field over the final 16 minutes of the game. Oh, and yeah, another playoff game winner too.
Lewis gets it to LeBron for 3 for the win. Yes! LeBron James and the buzzer!
Pandemonium at the Q, inspired by a now 24-year-old LeBron in his 6th season. The 2009 finals, man. What a ridiculous series to revisit. And what I mean by that is, well, let's look at game 1, a game to open the series in which LeBron James scored 49 points on 20 of 30 shooting, dished out 8 assists, and converted a tough and one over the Defensive Player of the Year with 25 seconds remaining to give his team the lead. A game that his team would lose. Unreal. In what was equivalent to an MLB pitcher losing a perfect game on a 9th inning error, LeBron did everything for the Cavs, did everything efficiently, came up big in the clutch, and it wasn't enough. Rashard Lewis, 14 seconds left, dagger. Rather than tuck tail after a devastating loss, however, LeBron had the answer in a pivotal game 2. Well, kind of. I mean, it definitely wasn't a perfect game again. LeBron would finish game 2 with a strong stat line of 35 points, 5 assists on 12 of 23 shooting, but this slicing finish high off the window with 6 minutes remaining was his only 2-point bucket of the 4th quarter. The Magic would outscore Cleveland in the final frame, and with about a minute remaining, LeBron would have his shot swallowed up by Mikal Pietrus on one end before Hedo Turkoglu drilled a massive shot to tie the game up. LeBron was low-key guarding air as he ran back on that possession too. On the ensuing possession, from bad to worse for James, as he he clearly took an extra step on a tough drive to the lane against Dwight Howard. And this time a travel was called. That turnover would give the Magic the final possession, and after a shot clock reset, Hedo Turkoglu once again stepped up to the plate for Orlando.
Down to 3. Here's Turkoglu. Yes! With 1 second remaining!
The Magic kept finding ridiculous clutch performances from their supporting cast during the 09 playoffs. The only error made by Hedo in this moment was leaving 1 second on the clock. Doug Collins on the broadcast would give his take on how the ensuing sequence should play out.
Because you want to put all kind of pressure on the ball and force Cleveland to have to catch the ball going away from the basket, catch and fire a very difficult shot.
And that is exactly what happened.
Lewis gets it to LeBron for 3 for the win. Yes! LeBron James at the buzzer!
Just like Michael Jordan's former coach predicted, the Magic forced Cleveland into a very tough shot, moving away from the basket. Unfortunately for Orlando, the reigning league MVP came up clutch in the playoffs once again, landing a moonshot at the buzzer. LeBron himself couldn't contain his happiness in this moment.
Rashard Lewis hit a game-winning 3, game 1. And I matched him with a game-winning 3 in game 2.
While a local Cleveland newscast reacted to this moment live.
Thunder should be a decent weekend for golf down at Canterbury. Everything's looking good.
Cavs win! Cavs win! Cavs win!
James over Pierce. That might be the dagger.
Okay. Let's get this out of the way right now. Yes, I'm about to discuss a great moment from LeBron in the 2011 playoffs. Sue me. Just 1 month prior to his greatest failure ever, LeBron James put his stamp on a moment that was years in the making. As a member of the Cavaliers, LeBron had lost to the Celtics in the playoffs in a tough 7-game series in 2008, then a disappointing 6-game series in 2010. Dwayne Wade and the Heat, meanwhile, had also lost to the Celtics in 2010. The dominance of the constructed Boston Big Three became the unabashed genesis for the Heat Big Three.
They're the reason why all 3 of us came together. It's because of what they did, that blueprint they had in 08 when they all came together.
Rather than continue to let the Celtics run the East, LeBron made the most controversial decision by a star in NBA history. And well, we know the rest of that story. But because of what would transpire down the road against Dallas, LeBron, Wade, and the Heat vindicating their decision to team up against the Celtics has become wildly overlooked. For the series, LeBron would average a cool 28-4-4 on 55% true shooting, but his most triumphant moment came in a closeout Game 5. Boston would carry a 2-point lead into the 4th quarter and would eventually go up by as much as 7. The legendary James Jones would smack a triple, and Chris Bosh would blow by Kevin Garnett for a slam, and just like that, the game was tied with 3 minutes remaining. Insert the king. After a Dwayne Wade ISO was cut off, he dropped it off to his running mate in the corner, where LeBron would launch and connect right in the grill of Paul Pierce. With under a minute remaining, still a 3-point game, LeBron would once again go to work on Pierce, this time out of isolation.
James over Pierce. That might be the dagger.
Okay, alright. Somebody has to say it. Kevin Harlan might just be the GOAT. Dagger or not, LeBron wasn't done just yet, as with the Celtics on their last leg, LeBron would jump an errant pass by Delonte West of all people, taking it coast to coast for a dunk. Wade would draw an offensive foul on West, LeBron would blow past Pierce for a deuce off glass, and with a personal 10-0 run, LeBron James and the Miami Heat had fulfilled their destiny and closed out the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. His heroics at this point in the playoffs would make his eventual fumbling of the bag just a month later all the more confusing. I'll never try to say that LeBron James is perfect or hasn't had his share of failures, because he has. But there are many more examples than just the 4 I showed today from one portion of his career that prove he's been legendary and clutch since day 1.
Too often we've seen LeBron James come up very mentally weak in clutch moments.
Real selective memory on this guy right here. Real selective.